Hi, welcome back. On this episode, we're going to change the clutch fan on my 4.8 liter with a new used one to me. I'm going to show you how to do it without using any specialty tools or anything, just regular tools you'll have in your toolbox. Don't forget to subscribe and click the notification button. Alright, let's get started. Alright, to get started, we're going to take the plastic shroud off the motor, and then we're going to take the intake off. So for the intake, it's just a 8mm socket, and they're usually not very tight, so you can usually just break it free by hand. And then that just lifts up and then pulls out of the back. There's just a little clip that it goes into in the back, and you put it in, you just slip it in, down, and screw it. And then from there, I'm just going to use a standard screwdriver to undo the hose clamp. And then same at the airbox. I'm just going to loosen up the hose clamp there as well, so then I can pull the breather neck off. And they can be a little bit stubborn if you haven't had it off in a while. If you have to, don't be afraid to gently go between the plastic and the rubber with your screwdriver, just to loosen it off and break it free. But don't be too rough with it. Alright, now that that's out of the way, I'm going to put something over the intake of the motor, just so no dirt or anything will get into it. A clean rag and some tape works quite nicely. Alright, now I don't gotta worry about anything going in there. Now the next step, we need to get this fan shroud out of our way. So we're going to loosen off the bolts on top. Looks like they're just going to be a 10mm. And then it looks like there's a couple of plastic keepers down on the lower part to keep it pinched. And then the rad hose also sits on there as well. So we'll just pop that connector open with a small little standard screwdriver so we can carry on. It's not ideal to have a small container just to put all the hardware in that you take off. Now I'm popping off these little plastic things here. So there's these little things, and they are pushed in like that, and there's a hole, and you can see it's kind of ballooned out. So that's sitting in the metal like that. So the way to get these out, you get a special tool like that, you put it in, and then you just pry up. And then when that lifts up, that allows this part to be able to shrink in, and then you can just pull it right out. And then there's a small nut and bolt on each side. That's the very last thing to come out. They look pretty rusty, so hopefully they come out okay. That small little stud on the bottom is spinning, so I'm going to put a pair of vice grips on. Alright, now that the fan shroud is loosened off and everything's taken off, we're able to pull it right out of the way. Those little nuts were a 9mm that I used. They were pretty rusted, so they might have been a bigger size at one point in time, but a 9mm worked to get them out. And now we're able to expose the fin. And this is that shake that I was talking about. A little better lighting. So when I grab on the fan, not sure if you can hear that or not or see it, but there's quite a bit of movement. It seems like it's on the bearing on the shaft where it goes on. Alright, I'm going to take the fan belt off. So I'm going to go right on the tensioner. You can see the tensioner right here. There's a bolt on the front of it. So I'm going to put a wrench or a ratchet on there, a breaker bar, whatever you have that you want to use. And I'm going to turn it towards the left side of the truck or the driver's side. And that will pull the tensioner in so I can get the belt off. It's 15 mil. That fits on there. I'm just using a 3/8 drive ratchet. I'll just slip the belt right over the top. And then I'm going to pitch the belt all the way out. It's always a good idea when you if you have your belt off to get a really good inspection, but you should inspect it every now and then anyways, just so you're never left stranded anywhere. I changed this belt not that long ago. It doesn't have that much mileage on it, but I'll still check it anyways before I put it back on. And then, as you can see, where the fan goes on, it rotates. So we're going to take a ratchet strap and we're going to ratchet up and over and then to something solid over here. And we'll be able to hopefully have enough tension on it so we're able to spin this right off the water pump. So the ratchet strap that I'm using is missing the hook on one side. It should work even if you have a hook on both sides, but I just figure this way it will put less tension and one make a pinch point or anything on the actual wheel. So I'm just going to loop it through like that, and then you want to make it so when you're putting force on it, so if I have it like this and if I'm trying to turn that wheel like this, it's going to want to slip more. But if I have it this way, so this is coming up and around, when I start putting more tension on it, this is going to kind of cinch itself tight, and then it won't allow the wheel to turn as much, and it should keep it tight enough that we're able to break that free. I'm able to fit my smaller pipe wrench in, so I'm going to try to break it free with that first, but I might not have any luck just because it's a shorter handle and I might need the extra leverage, which if I do, then I'll have to take the fan off of the clutch, but we'll see how it goes. You want to make sure too that the ratchet strap is sitting flat on the water pump wheel, so it'll give you the most surface area for the best contact. And then find something solid to lock it onto on the other side. I'm going to go up and over to the fender support, and then I'll show you guys with the camera, give you a better look where I'm going off of. Alright, so as we can see, we're around the water pump. And then up the idler wheel, across the alternator. And then I ran it up and over to the firewall and fender support. It's nice and strong. Be conscious of how much pressure you're putting on your master cylinder, your brake reserve, if you're close to it. I'm kind of close to it. I'm putting a little bit of pressure on, but not much. But I'm going to be very careful of that. Alright, so I can get my pipe wrench in. I'm going to try taking a hammer, giving it a whack. And there we go. Got it broke free. And now I should be able to just spin it right off. And it's free. So, as we can see, when I jiggle on this, there is quite a bit of play that shouldn't be there. The clutch portion of it actually still feels pretty good, but the rest of it is a little sloppy. This is the new one that I'm putting on, and as you can see, there's no play or movement in there. It's actually off of 5.3, but they are the exact same. So I'm going to put it on. It's what I was able to get my hands on for free. And it just spins straight back on. And you just want to make sure you have it snugged up after. And make sure you don't cross thread anything when you put it on either. I'm going to give it just a whack or two with the hammer just to make sure it's set nice and tight. Because you definitely don't want that coming off, because it could ruin your rod. And then you have to replace the rod, and they're expensive. And now we can take our ratchet strap off. Alright, now that the fan's on, we're going to put our belt back on. Make sure that your hands are clean and as grease-free as possible. And you should always check and make sure there's no direction of rotation on the belt. And if there is no direction of rotation on the belt, I always put it so I can read the writing, so the writing's facing towards the front of the truck. Just so it's easier to read if you ever need to change it. And then if you don't remember how the belt came off for the routing, there's a couple different ways you can figure it out. One way is to just look at the front, and there will always be a sticker showing how the belt goes on. If that sticker is missing, The best trick that I have for helping you figure out how it should go is you have your idler wheels that are usually, some of them are flat surfaced and some of them, like the tensioner, if we're able to get a better view of it, like the tensioner there, you can see that it has grooves on it. So the best thing I've ever found for figuring out how they go, whenever there's grooves, that means that the belt is going down on it. And then wherever it's a smooth surface, it means the face of the belt is going to ride on it. And that should work out true for pretty much any application. So if you are missing the diagram and you forget how it came off initially, that might help you to get it back on. And then once you get the belt looped around everything, it will be too long to make it on the tensioner, so that's when you get your ratchet back on there, and then you just bring the tensioner in, and then you let it back out, and then the belt should be on. And you want to try to make sure that, double check that everything is actually on all the wheels where they should be, so when you start it up, it doesn't fly right off, because it could come off with a lot of force and you don't want to get hurt or hurt somebody else or break a belt either, and you have to buy a new belt. Everything looks good. Now my next step, I'm going to put the fan shroud back on. I'm going to put a little bit of never sees on the little studs coming up. And when you are putting the fan shroud on, you do want to be conscious of how close you're getting to the rad, because you don't want to damage your cooling fins. So I'm going to kind of do things in a little different order. I'm going to put the 4 plastic keepers in place first, because this way the plastics will be, both holes will be aligned. Where if I tighten those other nuts up first, when I go to put the plastics in, if the holes aren't quite aligned, they might give me a little more trouble. And now I'm going to put those small little nuts on. And now our next step, we're going to put the top fan shroud bolts in. I'm going to never seize those as well. And we're just going to snug those up. They don't need to be crazy tight. We don't want to break them. They're not very big bolts, so we'll just snug them up. Now the next thing we're going to do is slip all our hose clips back in place. That will keep everything clear and safe. And then we're going to take our protective rag off. We're going to put the air breather nut back on. Make sure there's no dirt or anything in it. Make sure it's clean. And we're going to slip it onto the air box first, and then onto the intake. But we're going to keep the hose clamp loose on the air box. It might take just a little bit of jiggling to get it to go on. Alright, now we can tighten up those hose clamps. If you ever have a sound in your motor and you're not sure if it's your motor or a pulley wheel or something, you can always take the belt off and run your motor for a minute or two without the belt on, and then only things that would be turning would be internal parts, and externally the only thing that would be turning would be the crank and the torque converter or clutch plate, and that will allow you to have a better listen to make sure that it's a pulley or alternator or AC unit or something making a noise, not something internally like an internal bearing spinning or something like that, and it might help you troubleshoot. And you can also feel all of them and see how they spin and make sure that nothing feels wonky with that either. Now our very last thing is going to be putting our top cover back on. Alright, now the last step is going to be to put the cover back on the motor. I took a quick second to give it a quick clean. It looks way better again. So it just slips on in the back and then slides down. And then it's just that center bolt there. Just want to make sure it's on all the way. And it just threads right down. And I just snug it up. And that's it. I'm going to fire the truck up now and make sure that everything looks and sounds good. No engine lights or anything, everything's pretty good. Awesome. Thanks for watching. I hope that was helpful. Don't forget to subscribe. Click the notification button so you don't miss any new videos. See you next time.